Anyway, good.
Okay. I think all of you know Don, and he is a specialist in mental image, choreography, timing, anything that has to do with calling, and he has agreed to come here today and do a presentation for the Springfield Area Callers Association. So how about a nice hand for Mr. Beck?
Agreed to. I'm thrilled to be able to come here. I've done teaching of all sorts of parts of calling, but this is one that I'm particularly excited about and want to spread the word on. I'm just curious. I talked to Jay a little and know his background. I know Bob's learned this stuff step by step in the past. And I don't know, how many of you consider yourself primarily sight callers? That's what the world seems to be doing these days. How about module callers? I'm just saying primarily. When I started calling, I had no idea of any of these things, and when I asked around, nobody helped me, so I grabbed onto whatever I could, and I went for about 2 or 3 years just reading things out of magazines and collections of choreography. And so when I was lucky enough to run into Jay King and he sold me his book, I started learning that and thought it was the only way. And sight calling was just about coming in to thing. And actually at the time I lived in the Springfield area. I grew up here. And it scares me when I look at my notes, it said that was a little over 50 years ago. And I've done a lot in square dancing, and probably not nearly as much as I would have liked to, isn't that what we all think? But just trying to get a feel, I was trying to get a feel for where you're coming so I can know quite how to focus the talk. First of all, just want to mention that if you have questions, feel free to ask them. This is going to be semi-informal. I've got 1 of 3 answers. Either I'll answer your question, I'll tell you that the answer is coming in the presentation in the sequence, and I'll put you off till then because it'll make more sense. Or I'll say, I don't know. Maybe I'll try and find out for you. But feel free to ask anyway. I think you all know that there are different methods of, what do we call it, choreographic management. And I don't know how to spell that either. But it started with you read or you memorize, and then you get into modules, and I'm not going to explain what those are because I'm sure you all know. And each of them provides a different degree of flexibility. And then there's sight calling, which provides all sorts of flexibility. It requires less memorizing of certain things, but more memorizing of others. And I like to think of mental image choreography, at least the way I use it, is somewhere in between modules and sight as far as flexibility versus non-dependent on dancers and better control of your calling. If you're a new caller, I think it's a great thing to learn and a great way to start to give you a good fundamental idea of what choreography is all about. And many callers have stayed with it, and many have gone on to sight, but just using it to fall back on when they have to. If you're a sight caller, it's harder to learn how to do mental image because you're going to fall back on oh, I'm just going to sight call. But if you're clever, you'll pay attention to what it has to offer. And it's interesting academically, if nothing else, to see some rules that govern this square dance language that we all know and love. Or know and hate, I don't know, sorry. Anyway, without going on to some of the advantages for sight callers I'll mention later. I guess I haven't said yet. This is going to introduce you to mental image calling. It's going to teach you what it's all about. It's going to prove to you that you too can follow choreography in your head and resolve a square. It won't teach you how to do it. It'll show you that it's possible, but in an hour and a half or whatever time we take, you need more time to practice. When you didn't learn to sight call in an hour and a half, you didn't learn to dance in an hour and a half. But this will prove to you and show you the basics and give you the option of going on to learn more or not, depending on your interest. Let me start by introducing my friends here. This is a square. Back before most people use squares, I went into arrows. This is not an arrow pointing that way. Think of those things as arms. The guys are kind of pointy, the girls are curvy. The other thing that'll help you a little is when they're normal couples, they're holding hands. When they're half sashayed, they're not. Just a quick way to tell whether they're normal or not. So, I guess what I want to do first is prove to you that it is possible to follow some choreography, not nearly the flexibility of a sight caller, but a lot more versatile than a mental image, than a module caller. What I'm going to do is hide the identity of all these dancers, except for a key dancer. I usually use number 1, but number 1 man, it could be number 3 woman, anyone you want. But we'll stick with this for now. The rules are all the same. So to do mental image, first thing you have to do is you have to be able to follow the formation of the square in your mind. But as a sight caller, you've got to know that too. As a module caller, you've got to know that too. Am I going to end up after this call in lines of 4? As a module caller, I've got to know that I can only call modules that start in facing couples or facing lines. So without even talking to these guys, just to save a few minutes, give me a call from Square Set.
Touch a quarter.
Touch a quarter. What's the formation I have after that?
Quarter time.
No.
No, actually.
It's not.
Actually, no, you've got a box.
Well, you meant heads touch a quarter, and I think it's called a quarter. I think it's called a quarter box. All you got to know is there's a box of 4 in between 2 facing couples. Somebody give me it. Gloria, give me another call from here.
Walk and dodge.
What's the formation going to be like after that, Jay?
Mine's
Walk and dodge is going to be these guys walking in the middle. So the men are walking, the ladies are dodging, and I have,
Right-hand lady change.
I don't want to know anything other than the basic formation. I don't care who's where.
Okay.
Just a
In fact, we
facing
could even hide him. It's a box, it's an 8-chain 3 formation, it's a whatever you want to call it. Unless you want to call it waves, and then get out of here. Jay, give me a call that you can do from here.
pass through.
Pass through. Matt, what's the name of the formation?
Box.
Huh?
Give a box.
No,
Trade by, sorry.
trade by. They're not arrows, they're arms.
Yeah.
It'll take you a few hours, but believe me, it makes more sense. Matt, what's the call I can do from here?
Trade by.
Good one. Bob, what's the formation?
Facing,
After a trade by.
it's 2 boxes facing you. We had it before.
Same formation we had before, yeah.
A-chain?
All right, we do an 8, yeah. All right, let's do an
Well,
8.
I'm just saying that's the formation.
Let's do an 8-chain through. What's the formation after that?
A-chain.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
All right, so you don't have to, I mean, that's a pretty easy thing to do. Everybody knows how to follow that. Get these guys. One of the hardest things these guys have to do is to square their sets. They don't understand that part. 2 goes over here, holding hands. 1, 4, 4. Can everybody see these guys okay? You gotta excuse me. You can see them in your mind. You visualized it many a time. So what I'm going to do is lay about 300 restrictions on you. And then we'll remove them one at a time. And when we're done, we'll still have 250 left. But you'll be amazed what you can do with those first 50 things. I'm going to hide the identities. Well, let me backtrack half a step. We can follow formations. Pretty much, I think everybody can follow the position in that formation of one key dancer. Most people follow the number one man. Most women, I think, follow a man because they've been brainwashed too, but you could just as easily follow a woman. And if you have questions afterwards, I can give you guys a quick thing on how the rules still work the same way. So if I were to call head star through, I think we all know that we have a double pass-through formation with the active guy here. If I call centers right and left through, we have the same formation, but the active guy's gone here. If I do pass through, he's over here. If I do step to a wave, we have waves and the guy's still there. I'm not going to exercise, unless you guys want me to go more slowly. I'm not going to bother with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
There's
4,
8 of us.
6, 8. We have a square. I normally 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I normally dislike handing handouts at the beginning of a talk because then people read on and don't know what I'm saying because they're just to remind you what I said. But in this case, I want you to turn to the page 4, second to the last page, and that'll save me hanging the video. Actually, yeah, you can turn to it, but you don't have to at this point. Don't read it. So, first restriction we're going to talk about, the first thing we're going to do with all these restrictions is we're just going to dance with the head two couple. First of all, it's going to be all symmetric choreography, like most of the stuff we do. We're going to dance just the head two couples, and we're going to dance them just in the center. I forgot, I was going to prove to you that this works first. Give me a call.
Square through 4.
Head square through 4. Swing through. And by the way, don't try to get tricky and screw me up on this. Typical choreography. Gloria?
Hinge.
Single hinge. Jay?
Split circulate.
Split circulate.
Walk and dodge.
Walk and dodge. I've lost already. No, we're not. Hinge. Hinge and then split circulate. Boy, am I out of practice. Okay. No, we did touch quarter, you split circulate. That feels better. Kurt, do you call?
Oh, there. Let's see. Oh, wheel and deal.
I'm going to call tilt because that goes outside my boundaries for right now. We can work with it, but I'd rather not at this point.
Oh, okay. Partner trade.
Partner trade. And give me one more call. Bob, did you give me a call yet?
Bend the line.
Bend the line. I'm going to opt out of that too. I could handle it, but we're just seeing pass through. Let me resolve from here. I don't know where we are. Let's do a partner trade. And a reverse flutter, because that should flow okay. Partner trade. And a reverse flutter. Slide through. And with any luck, this is the number 1 man. His corner is number 4 lady. Got it. Her partner is number 4 man. His partner is number 1 lady. And this should be the number 3 couple and the number 2 couple. Worked again. I probably put more restrictions on calling tilt more than I usually do because I'm out of practice using this stuff. I haven't called very much lately. But it reminds me of the time I was giving this talk down in Oklahoma in Tulsa to the Oklahoma Callers Association. And I got to this point and said, are there any questions yet? An older gentleman in the back raised his hand and said, yeah, how'd you do that? Good point, that's what I'm here to do. I found the backstory on that later, which was kind of interesting, but not worth talking about now. So let's hide these guys. Let's keep number 1 man going.
Is that gonna help?
It helps me, yeah, that feels great.
As long as it doesn't blow papers around.
Thanks.
And even if it does there. All right, so back to where I was a moment ago. The restrictions I'm going to do now is we're only going to dance the head couples and we're going to keep them in the center of the square. Okay? A call.
Pass the ocean.
Pass the ocean. I can do that, all right. Keeping them in the middle. Sorry?
Swing through.
Swing through. Bob?
Center's run.
Center's run. Matt?
Center's wheel and deal.
Center's wheel and deal. So let's have the center's wheel around at this point. As we saw at the very beginning, or we all know and love, we can do an Allemande left if we have an 8-chain through formation. And number 1 man is standing here, right where it would be with a square, left square through 4. Let's not worry about hand availability. And if everybody else took care of themselves. The thing is, how do you get them to all take care of themselves? Well, we know this is still the number 4 couple because our restrictions said we couldn't move them. So that's cool. We know this is the number 2 because they haven't moved. We know this is the number 3 man due to symmetry with the number 1. Gotta be, and he's the only guy left, gotta be the number 3 guy. What we don't know is this number 1 lady or is this the number 1 lady? From what we've followed so far, we don't know that. And it's a 50-50 chance that it's right. And as I hope you know, if it's a 50-50 chance it's right, it's a 70-30 chance it's wrong. So, number 1, yeah, it was in this case. So, how can we ensure that the women are always in the right position? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing we did, dance these guys in the middle. But we're only going to use calls. Open your handouts, children. Page 4, the first column, O-type calls. Actually, the whole page, basic, mainstream, plus A1, A2, I don't care which ones you call. If you only use calls from that list, restrict yourself to that. Big restriction for now, but, and then dance the guy back to this spot. I like to think of it as a spot on the floor for him.
Good question, Don.
Yes.
What do you mean by O-type calls?
Eventually, I'm going to break all calls into 2 types. X calls that exchange partners and O calls that have 0 effect on them. The majority of them are O and you don't have to worry them. About 1/3 of them are X calls and we have to memorize that. That's the whole catch in this, but it becomes second nature after a while. And their definitions, what they are, that are beyond today's thing. But for the time being, using these calls, I'm not asking you to memorize them, using only calls from that list. Let's dance these guys around the middle, dance this guy back to that spot. We know the sides are going to be right. We know the number 3 man's going to be right. If you stick to that call, these 2 women are going to be right. Period. Kurt, give me a call for the heads and the heads from the square through.
Oh, star through.
Hit the star through. And that's on the list. Gene?
Pass through.
Who's that, Art?
Ted.
Ted.
It's Ted.
Sorry, I've met you
Right.
before, but
Right and left 3.
no, we're going to stick with these guys in the middle.
Oh, it's just in the middle?
Still right for the time being. That will be the next step we
Wheel around.
wheel around.
Pass the ocean.
That's the ocean. These are all on my list, on your list of O-type calls, so we're all still good. Gloria,
Hinge.
that's not on the list.
Oh, it's not. Okay, I'm sorry.
By the way, you haven't memorized the list yet, and I don't want your face totally in the page. So spit out what comes to your mind, and I'll tell you you're wrong.
Okay, do a wheel and do.
It's hard to do from waves.
Okay. Oh, okay, I keep, all right.
Notice you can see the wave
Yes,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Boys run around, boys run.
Not on the list.
That's not on the list. Oh, my God.
From here, there aren't too many things on the list. Pass through, right and left
Water
through.
tank.
Extend.
Well, it's not really an extend, but
Pass
let's just
through.
say pass through, okay.
Okay.
Okay, now, Matt, dance this guy to this spot.
We're facing out, right?
Yeah,
Partner trade.
partner trade, that'll get us there.
Center or slide through. It's slide through.
Slide through,
Center's pass through.
pass through, okay, and those are all calls on the list. And we still know these are number 4. We still know these are number 2. This is number 3. And because we stayed on the list, this is the number 1 lady, his partner, and number 3 lady.
Are we just using the basic calls here?
No, you can use any of them.
Okay,
The rules work the same. You know,
Okay.
I wouldn't want to use A1 calls if some of you were only mainstream callers,
Yeah,
but,
no.
but the rules were all the same. Any one of those will work,
okay.
okay? Let's back out. Any questions at this point? Yeah, aren't the dancers going to get bored? Yeah, they will, but we're going to pass that soon.
Just do these O and X type calls also extend the challenge, or would that be totally different?
It's pretty much 2 couple calls. In any challenge, 2 couple calls, and somebody asked about C1 calls, and I said I'll make a list for you about 3 years ago, and I haven't, and I can't remember who asked, but I should someday. Yeah, any 2 couple calls, or, yeah, 2 couple calls, or 1 couple calls, will fall into one of these 2 categories. So, moving on in a logical order. So what we're going to do now is continue only dancing the heads in the middle. But I'm going to throw in a call from the X list. Okay, I'm going to throw in ladies chain, which exchanges the ladies. And now we dance them all around and we bring this guy to his spot. And what's going to happen? It should be obvious that everybody's right except the ladies, because I've changed them. So, let's do a... So we've used the ladies chain. What I'm going to do now is use the second ladies chain and cancel the effect of the first one. It should obviously work now. Is everybody comfortable with that? If not, let me know. Now, it turns out, this was a breakthrough for me way back when. I'm going to do a ladies chain, but not chain her right back right away. I'm going to do a star through, and I'm going to do a ladies chain here. Coincidentally, I had the number 1 lady and the number 3 lady came to me. I again had the number 1 lady. Did I do the ladies chain? Oh yeah, this
Yes,
is
you
me, not
did.
this one. And it doesn't matter who went which way. All I know is I called one X and I canceled it with another X. I don't care what the identity of that lady is or anything. But I called one, exchanged the ladies once, and exchanged them again with another ladies chain. Let's go dance to our spot, square through 3/4. We all happy that these are number 2 and 4 couples? I haven't touched them. This should be my partner, number 1 lady, and of course these away. Square your set. Let's take it a step further. I'm going to do a flutter wheel instead of a ladies chain, another X. Change the men instead of the women. Same thing, if I do another flutter wheel, it'll cancel the effect of it. If I don't do another flutter wheel, I'm going to have the wrong lady with me.
But you could do a reverse flutter
I could do a reverse flutter.
and then square through 2 or whatever.
Half left square through, so your right hand, correct hand's available. Yeah, not worried about hand availability. I've done one flutter wheel. I'm going to walk the guy to his spot because I see a few slightly blank stairs, just to be sure. So according to theory, 4 and 2, number 3, but because I called the X call flutter wheel and didn't cancel it with another flutter wheel or reverse flutter, this is not the number 1 lady, it's the number 3, whatever. So I'm going to do an over the shoulder ladies chain and get them back home. All right, so here's, are we square? Yeah. So here's the next big step. This is really cool. I said if I do 2 ladies chains, they don't have to be facing the same way as long as it's the same 2 couples. Or if I do 2 flutter wheels. Turns out that if I do any call on the X list, I can cancel it with any other call on the X list. Any X cancels any other X.
And it could be with the opposite couples.
Right now, we're still working just these in the middle. Tons of restrictions. We'll get rid of those soon. Well, pretty soon. So, call something, anything. Whose turn is it?
Okay, go ahead.
Pass the open.
Pass the ocean. That's an O. Give me another one.
Are we doing O's or are we doing?
No, we're
O's?
doing anything you want.
Anything else?
And you can guess if you want, but I'm going to comment after each one, and if it's an X, I'm going to let you know that we have to
Go
cancel.
ahead, Bob. That's what I would have done.
Center's crossroad.
Center's cross run. That's an X. Wait, how do you do that? Okay, these, he was a center. Okay, so we have left-handed waves, men in the middle, and we have an uncanceled X. For the time being, I'm going to hold my hand up. To I can call an Alaman left with my hands down. If it's up, stop. Yeah, that's better than what I was thinking.
So then if you're in a left-handed ocean wave, left swing through.
Left swing through. Half left. Center's half right. So that's an X. My hand is down. Somebody give me another call.
Girls run.
Girls run. We now have normal couples, left-handed two-face waves, and that's an X. So we have an X, our hand up again. Yeah, we could wheel and deal. That's an O, so it would stay that way. I'm going to save time and I'm going to try to resolve from here. I'm going to do a bend the line because it's an X. To cancel this X. And now theoretically, if I do a half square through or start these pass through, the gals should be right. Everybody see that? Slide through, pass through. Number 3 man, number 3 woman, number 1 woman, and of course the 4s and 2s. So, at this point, we can only dance 1 couple, 2 couples in the middle. We can use X's and O's, but whenever we use an X, we have to be aware of it and cancel it right away. Well, cancel it eventually before the element left, before we move this guy to his spot. Let's talk about using X's.
How do you know which is the X and O? Just because it's on this list?
Because it's on the, for
Because
now,
you
take my word for it,
memorized it
because
and
it's
you-
on the list. If you really want to get into it, or if we have an extra 2 hours here, the book has an explanation of the actual derivation of it. It's,
I just asked.
for now,
Yeah.
take my word for it.
Yeah.
I'll try to give you hints that make it easier as we go along. For the time being, or what I found most useful for me when I started was whenever I called an X, I canceled it as soon as I could so I wouldn't forget it. So my arm wouldn't get tired. Actually,
Does it have something to do with putting the person in and out of sequence? I mean, basically,
it has to do, when there's an uncanceled X, in Color Lab speak, you have a mixed partner pairing. But that doesn't, but that never meant too much to me, and the terminology didn't exist when I learned it. But yeah, you're putting either the men or the women.
out of sequence.
Yeah, the men are in a different sequence than the women.
When you call an X,
Yeah,
you say, yes, I understand that you need to call another X. You can do some stuff in between, but you need to call the other X.
yeah.
Must that other X be within the same group that you called the first X?
This is a great example of, we'll get to that. Eventually, we'll talk about the middle location, the left location, and the right location. That's
Okay.
where the active guy is.
We will get to that,
And,
that's fine.
and yeah, you have to cancel them, but you can cancel them in different places, and it does exciting stuff. For now,
Or if you made an X with the other 4, the girls would be totally out of sequence. Like across the street.
it's called a phantom X, and we probably won't even get to that today, but it's in the book.
Right.
I guess one of my students here, I just used to keep track of X's and O's, or X's. You don't have to keep track of O's, you can use as many as you want. It's the X's you have to be aware of.
So the
Yeah.
X is actually what you're doing is you're changing the partnership of the dancers. You're changing the partner of the, say, right now, you're using that. So what you're doing is changing the head ladies, just with these 4, and that becomes an O.
Sort
I mean
of.
an X, I mean.
Sort of.
That becomes an X. If you change the head ladies.
But here, okay, let me go to a very basic thing of the whole system. You've got to know the formation. You've got to know the location of one particular dancer in that formation. And you've got to remember that if you call an X, you cancel it. But you don't have to memorize, in fact, I don't want you to memorize where anybody else in the square is. They will take care of themselves automatically. That's the part that, you know, if you were a total mental image, you could see all 8 dancers and follow the whole thing up here. It'd explode. If you were, all you really need to do is follow the 4 dancers that a sight caller has to dance. I couldn't do that. It'd explode. So what I've worked out a system that you only have to follow 1 dancer. Now, the formation changes with every call. The location or almost every call. The position of that one dancer changes with every call, but whether the X is canceled or not, there's only two states, normal and uncanceled X. It doesn't change with every call, so it's easier to follow than not only where is this guy, but where's she and there is that, and what's the name of her. And you do have to, I didn't draw this originally, but I picture the floor in our starting formation here. 8-chain through setup and somebody standing on each of these blocks. And the active guy has to be on this spot, facing out in an 8-chain through formation, to call the out man left if everything else is taken care of. So eventually we will be moving that spot, but for a long time now we're going to leave it right where it is. So it doesn't move with every call, just like the identity of the person next to me. I mean, some people keep track of the identity of the woman next to them, and that changes with every call, and it could be any one of four. I want you to follow the formation, position where the active guy is, and nothing else moving around.
If you called the 8-chain 4 formation, that would move that dot from that square to the upper square one removed.
Yep.
And wouldn't that be awkward for an element left? Because as
Well,
he's approaching...
Hand availability. Hand availability. Yeah. Hand availability. But yeah, that's another step that's coming.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, it would
there's
also change timing too.
Huh?
If you're promenading,
Yeah.
timing would be the other thing that changed.
so I had this one student say, well, I keep track of X's rather than trying to keep it in my mind where I'm doing all these other things also. I just do this when I've called an X and this when I don't call an X. And I said, what do your dancers think of that? And he said, well, I actually only do it in front of the mirror down in the basement when I'm practicing. I said, well, that's better. But it is kind of a physical aid that your mind can do this and this instead of having to think about it, because you're thinking of all these other things, timing, hand availability, how slippery is the floor, is Jake drunk tonight or not? And I mean, just like you tap your foot with the music, that's easier to keep the rhythm of the music than it is to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4 while you're trying to do all these other things at the same time. So he and I decided that it'd be a lot better than putting the hand up and down and just crossing your fingers. If I do an X, I make an X with my fingers. If I undo it, I straighten. My hands are straight.
That's what Jerry Story says. He puts his hand in the pocket, makes an X, crosses his fingers.
I sometimes do that. Sometimes it's second nature eventually, but so that's a physical crutch that helps with that. All right, so let's move on.
What I have done, and I should learn to go away from it, is if I make an X, if I call an X, I call it an immediate X right away.
That's the easiest way, is to cancel it right away so that most of the time you don't have an uncanceled. That's the easiest way.
It would be nice to be able to insert some margin before you do the second X.
I wrote something on an advanced form of this very recently and sent it to a proofreader. And at one of the more involved examples, I said, we're doing an X now, and we're going to have to remember to cancel it after doing all this other stuff. And he pointed out that I didn't remember by the time I got down to writing that example. Yeah, it's a lot easier if you cancel them right away. So, we have done, now you can use any of these calls for just the heads. You could do the same for just the sides and dance this guy to this position. You could do just the same for following this person, and her spot is here. And just do all the same X's, the same O's, dance her to this spot, and everybody else will take care of themselves. Now let's go on to your first thing to be removed. let's dance a whole bunch in the middle. Make sure all X's are canceled. Bring them out to here, and let's dance some more out here. Let's just stick with these two couples that we're following this guy. These guys are going to do the same thing over here. Call a bunch of calls. If you use an X, cancel it right away. When you're done, bring them back to this formation and the guy standing on this spot, and we'll still have an Allemande left. Let's do a touch a quarter. I've done an X, split circulate. I've canceled the X. Typically people will call men run here, so we have another X. Let's do something different. Somebody said single hinge before. Do a single hinge, that's another X. Ladies trade, that's canceled the X. Now let's bring this guy back to his spot. Recycle would do it, but it's an X. And we want to bring them back without X's. So I'm going to do another ladies trade. I probably would have done the recycle before that. So we have an uncanceled X. Go frontwards, ladies. Recycle, cancel that X. 8 chain 4 8 chain 3 formation. And we've involved everybody. The sides are getting bored. Number 4 lady, yes? We got it. Number 4 man, number 1 woman, and of course 2s and 3s. You've just extended the amount of choreography you can do. Oh, another word about this. Memorizing X's can freak people out at first. Here's 2 simple thoughts about it. 1, what do I know about a flutter wheel? It starts with couples facing. That's 1 item. It ends with couples facing. It exchanges the people on the right side. It has a certain kind of body flow. I know 4 things already. If I add another 20%, it's an X. It's a little, and once an X, it's always an X. Trades, whether it's men, ladies, except for couples. Think of couples as centers trading and ends trading. But trades, whether it's from waves or 2-face lines, men, women, it's always an X. Run is always an X. Cross run is always an X. Flutter wheel, reverse flutter, always
Why?
an X.
Why is it always an X?
That gets into the definition, and I will try to give you a feel for that later. But for now, because it's on that list.
Okay.
But it makes it easier to memorize because, you know, one of the things I learned way back when that screwed me up no end is I thought once a call is an X, it's always an X. And I read in somebody's note service a neat sequence that had a fan the top's an X, and it didn't work out. Turns out fan the top is an X from ocean waves, but not from 2-face lines. There's about 2 or 3 calls that it depends on the starting formation. Wipe that off your memory for now. Fan the top's an X. We don't call them 2-face lines that often. But basically, once an X, always an X. But here's the thing that I think, and I didn't do it this way, but I think would be great if you're teaching a new class. Typically, the only X call you teach them in the first 5, 6, 10 lessons is ladies chain. Depends on your teaching order and how you do it, but as you're teaching them new calls one at a time, you learn that call, the ones that are X's, at that same time, one at a time. And so that would be, if you're really interested in learning this, that would be a good way to do it while you're teaching a new class. Keep in mind that most of the calls are O's, and you're only going to start teaching X's a little while down the road. And you learn them one at a time, the same time you dance it. For now, because it's on the list, because I say so. Yeah,
I do like a fan the top from the 2-face line. I know it's an X.
it's an O.
It's an O.
It's an X if it's in a wave, it's an O if it's not an O, if it's two-faced.
I follow it up with a wheeling deal.
That's an O.
That's
Here,
And a reverse the flutter wave.
that's an X.
Right.
There's some people, there's a similar system that a few people use around New England that I've argued with a lot, because I have walk and dodge as an O and touch a quarter as an X, and they think of it in the reverse way. Mine, when you start moving the spot because of doing X's in different locations, theirs doesn't hold true, mine does. So for the time being, for this system, follow this. And don't want to get into the argument, but acknowledge that some people think it's the other way. Bob, you looked like you had a question brewing on your lips.
I do.
Okay?
So an X cancels out an X, but an O doesn't necessarily have to cancel out
You
an
can
O?
call as, O's have
Many-
zero effect. You can call, as far as exchanging partners, you can call as many of those as you want. Some people think, well, gee, I'll just count the X's, odd, even, odd, you know, and they say, gee, did I call 6 or did I call 7? Don't think of it that way. You know, if it's 7, you got to cancel it, and if it's 6, don't count X's, because that's an extra step. You want to keep it as simple up here as possible. I called one, I canceled it. I don't have to think. If I called one, I better cancel it soon.
Just like when if you're half done shading, you don't want to keep half done shading too long.
Well, you can see if they're holding hands. So what we've just done is we've gone from dancing them just in the middle to dancing them a whole bunch on, I call it the left side because that's where my active man is. Same rules as dancing in the middle. Any calls you want, keep them there, cancel all X's, bring the guy to this spot. Everybody else will take care of themselves. Now, let's bring them over to this side and see what happens. Now, here's the I'm going to do a square through, right and left through and veer left. Now, just to, yeah, right and left through and veer left. Easier that way for the dolls. Which means for me. I'm about to do a couple circulating. So we have one other category of calls, and they're the last page, page 5 at the bottom, across the center type of calls. There's certain calls that take people across the center. You should be comfortable with that. Couple circulate, pass through trade by. It's not a call, but consider it one. Dive through, pass through, 8 chain 2. These all take one couple and bring it to the other side. What you've got to learn is when you're setting up and across the center, your active guy better be going across the center. And the spot will stay right here. Now it turns out, in steps advanced, if you're doing an across the center call and your active guy didn't, subconsciously you know that means your inactive guy did, and that means the spot moves from here to here, like we were talking about flipping the board before. But look, for the time being, let's keep it that somebody goes across the center, it's got to be the active guy. If it's not, do a right and left through, pass through, trade by, and bring them back, and go from there. So, let's do a couple of circulate. My mind's thinking, gee, the active guy's moved across the center. No X's, everything's cool. Let's do a chain down the line, bend the line, pick one. Anything you want.
Chain down the line.
Chain down the line, that's an O. For what it's worth, part of the introduction of myself is, among other things, back in the day, in the heyday of creating calls, I got caught up in that and created a few. Chain down the line was one of them. Ferris wheel was one. Ping pong circulate was one. it was an exciting time in a different way. All right, so we have the active guy came over to the right side. All X's are canceled. The spot is still over here. We can dance these guys around a bunch and cancel all X's. Let's say we've done that. And now, I'm going to dance them over here we're going to dance them to a spot, but one that I didn't mention, let's do it past the ocean. That's an O. Another one on the across the center list is all 8 circulate. That's going to bring my active guy back, and it's because all 8 are circulating. It's an O. How do we get them to fit here? She goes there. She goes there. He goes over here. So we brought somebody across the center. Again, it was our active guy, so we don't have to worry about the spot. It's still right here. All X's are canceled. How do we get to an L man left from here?
Swing through boys run, wheel and deal.
Got it. Another one. Pass through partner trade.
Cycle.
Partner trade, and then we got to do a right and left through kind of thing. Let's try the recycle bit. Against recycle. Yeah, like this. All right. That's an X. That gets him here, but it's an X. Let's do a sweep quarter. That cancels the X. And now we can do a slide through. Or any way you want. We're ad-libbing. We're just remembering to cancel X's. We haven't learned modules. We're not as flexible as a site caller, but we are ad-libbing choreography as we go. And we know, let's do the slide through. What do we do here? Recycle, sweep a quarter. And slide through. We've been doing a heck of a lot of stuff, only following this guy. And because we've been following these rules, these better be the number 4 couple, and the number 1 lady, and the number 2, and the number 3.
So if you just memorize the X's, everything else is an O.
Yep,
Except, yeah,
if it's 2 couple stuff, yeah.
right.
Cool, huh?
Yeah, I could do that.
Let me jump ahead. Just due to your basic experience level. We'll go into showing some more cool stuff, but for the time being, why would a site caller care about this? Well, one, academically, it's kind of interesting that all these things that we do have sort of reasons behind them and fall into place. I don't think I said that right, but that's close enough. Academically, it's kind of interesting that there are rules that can follow this stuff. I call site mostly. I called this for the longest time because my memory's not that good. And memorizing a different corner every tip blew me away. Then after many years of thinking I was a site caller, I realized how much I still relied on this. First tip of every sequence. I haven't memorized who started with whom yet. I'm memorizing that on the fly. I'm doing mental image while I'm doing it. Bring them back. I'm calling a festival. Everybody's wearing yellow and black outfits. I don't know the people there. And the color of the costumes don't help at all. I'm calling mental image. I'm thinking of one in particular in Maryland where about the 3rd break after the 3rd tip, some guy said, you know, the history of our unit outfits, club outfit is kind of interesting. They added those black ribbons on the shoulders in 1937 or whatever it was. And then they added the striping on the black striping on the guys' shirts. And this year, and all of a sudden I could see little differences between the costumes. They weren't all just yellow and black. And all of a sudden I became a site caller again instead of just relying on this. you have the opportunity to call gay and lesbian groups, I'm sure it would help. The big place I think that I use it most and would be helpful to you, I tend to ad-lib the choreography for singing calls. I used to think that was a no-no, and then I got too lazy to memorize good ones, and good enough to ad-lib and still have it fit the music. Here's the case of my corner changes every sequence in a singing call. I can't keep track of that. Most of the choreography you need for a singing call is no more difficult than we've just done. You listen to any of your singing calls, the called side, and follow it in your head, and you'll see that most, heads promenade halfway down the middle and square through, swing through, men run, 2 X's cancel each other, Ferris wheel, center square through 3/4, and you're on the spot, swing. Instead of Alaman left, you swing your corner. Have you heard that figure before? Over and over. Huh?
Music.
Yep. And it fits the music nicely, which helps. So you can do ad-lib singing calls using this with just basic choreography that we've already talked about. You still have to get comfortable with the X's. And the last one that I think is kind of cool, as a sight caller, have you ever had your active guy, the guy over here, and you want to match him with his partner over here, and you call pass through trade by, and she goes zipping to the other side? So you do some stuff, and then you call couples circulate, or all 8 circulate, bring him over here, and she goes zipping to the other side. You've had that.
You got
Oh, yeah.
you got an X, you call it twice.
If you know your X's, bring him over. If she zips to the other side, call an X, any X, and bring him back, and she'll wait for you. It's as easy as that, once you know your X's.
She has to be in the quadrant with it?
No, if you're trying to match a guy up to somebody,
Match her.
to another woman,
Right.
and you bring her, and she's across the square, and you bring her over, and you go over to her, but she ends up coming the other way.
She crosses over. So call an X
So
over
call
there
an
and
X,
she'll
and
come
then
back.
she'll wait for you.
Yeah.
If you call an X over here and then come back, she'll wait for you. Any X. It's gotten me out of some trouble. One square still going, the others are standing around. Well, you resolve already, Okay, so that's a little jumping ahead to try to keep sight callers interested. Let's move on. Well, this is where I'm starting to enjoy stuff here. Let's suppose square set. They're close, that makes it easy. Hide identities. Call some in the middle, cancel X's, bring them to the side. Dance around a little. I'm going to do a right and left through and veer left. So, we should be comfortable with, right now, wheel and deal will bring in the spot. Or I could do a couple circulating, the active guy be going across. I'm going to call an X here, but not cancel it. I'm going to call ladies trade, just because it's quick. I've got an uncanceled X on the left. Now I'm going to bring the guy across, couple circulate. Now, I could bring him back and do another X here. The spot would still be here. I could do a wheel and deal, pass through, trade by, ladies chain, awkward as all get out from there, but you get the idea. But instead, I'm going to cancel this X on the left with one on the right. We're going to see what happens. Bend the line. So all X's are canceled, but it was canceled in a different location. I did it on the left and canceled it on the right. Now, let's bring the guy back to the spot and see what happens. Star through. Pass through. Trade by. So if nothing happened, this would be the number 4 couple. But because we didn't cancel the X in the same location, it's 9. And this is not my partner. Things have gotten all screwed up. Let's undo the trade by. Let's undo the pass-through. So we did an X on the left, couple circulate, bend the line, an X on the right, star through, X over here, and X over here. Let's see what we have here. That's his corner. That's her partner. That's my partner. I can call an Allemande left. I have moved the spot from here to here. Still an 8-chain through formation, but by doing an X on the left, canceling it with the one on the right, I move the spot 2 places, from here to here.
So if you move, if you do the X on the left and do the X on the right, you're going to resolve on the right. Instead of bringing him back to the first dot, instead of bringing him back to the, what we were saying, the original resolve place, you're going to resolve on the other side of the square, where you did the X, the second X.
I don't want you to think of it that way.
Okay.
Basically,
I moved the
you've
spot from
you've
here.
Inverted?
Huh?
You've inverted.
No, I haven't. It's still an 8-chain through and he's still south of this line. He's still looking here. Now, we're eventually going to name these spots. This, an 8-chain through spot, this is called the number 3 spot. This is the number 1 spot. We've converted number 3, and I call it west because it's looking west. The inverting will be looking east. They will be east spots. But for the now, I've changed the 3 west to a 1 west. If I were to do the same thing again, spot,
So he's facing the same direction.
still an 8-chain through.
Yeah, but he's facing.
Some people think of it as I've exchanged actives because now he's got his partner next to him, and the sides are the ones active in the middle. But all I want you guys to think of is I did an X on the left, an X on the right. The spot has moved 2 places from 3 to 1, from here to here.
But don't you still have a 0 box?
We still have a 0 box. I can still call an Allemande left.
Right. And you actually start the box.
I've stirred the bucket if you want to think of it that way.
If you want to think of it.
One of the ways I like to think of it as a precaution is if I do swing your corner and promenade, I've got less distance to promenade. I don't run out of music, I got extra music, but just to be aware of that.
Which is good when you have a grand square. Call next.
That's right.
What?
It's good when you have a grand square to call next. because
Exactly.
It gives you time to say it as they're still coming.
So I have just moved the spot from here to here by doing the X over here and the X over here. Now it turns out, this is why I didn't want you to think of it the way you were. If I do a head start through pass through, do an X over here, and bring them over here and cancel the X over here, it still moves the spot here to here. Even though they're coming this way, the spot still goes from here to here. Let's dance one of those. It also works out that if I do 2 X's again, here and here, or here and here, and the spot's here, it'll move back to here. That's sort of intuitive. Um, What do we got? 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're all home. Hide identities. So I'm going to move them over to here. The spot right now is here. Cancel all X's in the middle, move them over here, leave a spot, leave an X uncanceled, bring them over here, cancel the X, and I know that will move the spot from here to here. Then I got to dance them back over here to get on the spot. Look at those blank stares, I love it. All right. It's hard from here to tell whether they're blank or bored, you know?
They ain't bored.
All right, so let's do a half square through. How do you do that, guys? Slide through.
The half was what, an X? Say if it's
No.
an X or an I.
It's an, I'll tell you when we're
Okay.
doing an X.
Okay, so all those unless you tell us.
Yeah, square through, half square through, 3/4.
Okay.
Left square through is any number. They're all O's. What did I do? Slide through. Pass the ocean. So those are all O's so far. I'm going to do an X now, over here. Call it here on the left side, right side, because he's there. I'm going to do an X that I'm going to cancel over here. Centers trade. I'm going to do an across the center movement, and my head guy's going across, active guy. All 8 circulate. That takes care of the guys. Takes care of the women.
So that was an X.
That's an across the center.
Okay. All 8
Now,
circulators.
I get an X over here with the centers trade. I'm going to cancel it on this side with a recycle because I'm planning ahead and it makes it quicker. So I've just done an X on the right and an X on the left. Let's move the spot from 3 to 1. Now, in order to resolve the square, I've got to get this guy, still an 8-chain through formation, normal couples. I got to get him over here facing him.
Pass through trade line.
Pass through trade by, I'll accept that. Let me do the pass through. Trade by. Am I doing this right? So. Now, how do I get him on this spot?
To your left, wheel and deal.
To your left, wheel and deal. Another way.
Right and left through.
Right and left through. Another way.
Slide through twice.
I'm going to, huh?
Slide through twice.
Yeah. I'm going to cheat a little. I'm going to involve the others. Pass to the center square through 3/4. Okay. Let's do the right and left through. It's easiest for the dolls. Not great for the hands, but easy for the dolls. And if also I did an X here, here, move the spot here, brought the active guy back here. If all goes right, this is the number 1 lady and the number 4 couple. Little vlog, right? Yeah. We're only following the formation and where this guy is. We're not following anything else. It's possible. Ready for the next step?
X and zeros, that's what I gotta remember though.
It's a lot easier just to remember the number one there.
All right, they're home, put on their masks. You were asking me, Gloria, if I needed live dancers. It's much easier to hide the identities and keep you focused on this than have real dancers here.
That's true, yeah. I was concerned that he might need a square to do some demonstration.
Yeah, it works much easier this way.
Yeah.
These are my buddies. Been with me for a long time. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is do an X in the middle. Leave it uncanceled and cancel it on the right.
Okay.
Is that what I want to do? Yeah. Let's do an X in the middle and cancel it on the left.
Why does it make a difference?
Huh?
Why does it make a difference?
Just in the progression of learning. The next step will be doing it the other way. Just I think it's a little easier this way. So let's do head ladies chain. We have an uncanceled X in the middle. Heads pair off. Ladies chain. We have an uncanceled X. We canceled the middle one on the left. Ladies chain.
So you've canceled your X.
We did one in the middle, cancel it on the left. We should start to get a sense that now we can do an Alaman left, but it's moved the spot.
Well, if you cancel it on the left, you also canceled it on the right.
Yeah, I
For
don't,
that couple.
I don't
For that-
talk about
yeah.
them, but they're doing the same thing,
Right.
The
exactly.
active band was on the left.
But I just think of the active guy,
Mm-hmm.
as he was in the middle, he was on the left. So we should have this feel already that if I cancel an X, then an Alaman is left. But if I cancel it in a different location, the spot moves. Originally we canceled in the middle, the spot didn't move. We danced on the left, but canceled them here, it didn't move. We canceled them here, it didn't move. Then we did a left and right, it moved it, right and left, it moved it. So now we've done a middle and left.
So that should be 4.
So let's just look at what we got. And you're thinking ahead nicely. This is not corners, but if I do a pass through, now this is different. All the others have been 8 chain throughs formations. Now we're in a trade by formation. But we danced the guy to this spot, his corners here, her partner, our partner. Are we all comfortable this is a viable Alaman left spot? So we had the number 1 spot, number 3 spot here, an unnamed spot, number 1 spot here. This is the number 4 spot. Guess what that one's going to be? Okay, number 2. These 2 are 8 chain through formations. These 2 are trade by formations. We'll get to this in a second.
Okay, so right from here, you're going to do your element.
I can do my Alaman left because I moved this guy to this spot in the trade by formation. And I set that up by doing an X in the middle and then one on the left. Before progressing, let me jump ahead to something because this, again, because most of you have been calling a while and want to see how this is useful without converting completely to it. Everybody's on this spot. I'm going to have them all quarter in. What do you see? 0 line. So a 1P, 2P, or a 0 line is the same as having the spot over here, but everybody quartered in. So how do I get out of 0 lines? Slide through, square through 3/4. Gee, that rule follows the same one to bring this guy to the spot, etc.
So an X in the middle and an X on the left
Moves it to the
moves him to number 1 spot for resolve.
left. Number 4. moves
I mean,
the-
well, 4, yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
There are reasons for giving it that particular
Yeah.
number, but we won't get into that.
No.
I could dance him around, bring him over here and call an 8 chain 3. That would bring him in. lots of, whatever zero line get outs that you normally use.
You
will
just
not
have to
work.
know when you called your X's.
Now, what's another way to get into this formation?
Lead right,
From where?
circle.
Lead right, circle the line. In other words, promenade, heads wheel around, or sides wheel around. So you can do some pretty quick ad-lib stuff that you're promenading, heads wheel around, and that gives you this. Then I know all I've got to do is dance I just did a heads wheel around. I can do anything I want here, not only star through, square through, three-quarters, anything I want, as long as I bring him to a trade by position and this guy is on that spot.
So you could, if you have them all facing, you could call any number of things, as long as you brought him back to that spot, and then you could do
And
your
cancel
resolve.
X's. And
Yeah.
cancel X's.
Right.
Yep.
So if you did an X in the middle and an X on the left, then do a whole bunch of zeros, and bring him back to that spot, you can resolve.
Yep. While we're here, let's look at one more thing. What happens if he's facing this way? Again, it's arms, not an arrow.
I would do a boys run square through three. I don't know if that would work.
You call right and left ran.
Oh, you could. Oh, you're all facing each other. Yeah.
Anytime you want a right and left grand get out, dance them to any spot that we've had so far, or any spot we will, and have them do a U-turn back, and you got a grand right and left.
You know, it's funny because I get very confused because I keep thinking that you've got the arms going in, but I
Yeah, I
keep
know.
thinking it's the
You
other
know,
way.
I have conceded in more recent things, but not in the book I wrote and not here,
Yeah, that's-
to make these squares instead of,
That's all right. That's all.
Yeah,
I just
no.
get a little line.
yeah, when they're squares, I still like the open end and the arms.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
think of
but
it that
that's-
way.
yeah, I
But
just
boy,
have
does
to-
this arrow confuse people for the first 21 years,
Yeah.
So right now, to get a grand right and left get out, with everything you know, dance into that spot, but dance it with everybody facing the other direction. And you can do a grand right and left. Be an 8-chain or a trade by.
So if you had the boys, if you had they're facing it. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Yes.
Let's go.
My arms are going the opposite. Oh dear.
So unless you want, but I'm just gonna talk this one through. If I do an X in the middle and an X on the right, we did a middle and left, and it moved the spot left.
Do it again. Do that, please.
Do that again?
Because I would like this. No. Put the X on the right. Do the X in the middle and the X on the right.
Okay.
Because I have to visually see it.
So, again, to repeat, I did the X in the middle and on the left,
Right.
and the spot moved left. If I do the X in the middle and on the right, the spot's gonna move right.
So you're going to go to the number 3 position.
No, we're in 3, it'll go to
Yeah.
2. You'll see it when we get there.
Yes. I see where the 2 is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I know where you
So,
are.
do an X in the middle for me.
That's the ocean.
That's an O, but I'll pass it.
And ladies' trade.
That's the X in the middle. Okay, now bring them to the outside.
Now you're going the other way.
I hear an extend. You all happy with an extend? Brought them to the outside. You keeping with us, Jay? Good. Now I gotta do an X out here.
Recycle?
Beautiful. Anyway, I've done a whole presentation on doll shortcuts that people seem to be more fascinated in than I would have expected. But it's kind of fun, and it gives you a basic feel for what the calls are really doing. But that's another story. So I've done an X in in the middle and an X on the right, I've moved the spot one place to the right, which is, let's look at it this way. This was the number 3, 4, 1. We moved it one spot to the right, so this X is here. So I have to get into a trade by position, and the simplest of all is pass through, 8 chain 1. And the proof of the pudding is,
Element left.
proof of the pudding is this should be corner number 4, her partner, my partner. Ta-da.
So an X in the middle, an X on the right. You're gonna do an element left in the center on spot number 2. He's gonna be in spot number 2.
Let me generalize a whole pile. So this is 3, 2, 1, 4.
Okay, so if he's in the, that, he's always gonna be facing in.
He's always facing this way.
In.
He's always
Right.
facing that way.
If you resolve, he always has to be.
As long as the inactives don't cross across the center.
Okay,
As long as the inactives don't cross. As long as every time we do an across the center call, it's our active going across.
then he would resolve on the opposite side.
Then we would move the spot to this. So here's the generalization. No matter where the spot is, if I do an X on one side and then the other, either order, that's here, not here, but here. 2 places away, we move the spot 2 places. If it's here, it moves to here. If it's here, it moves to here. If it were here, from a heads wheel around, or a 0 line, it'd move from here to here if we did it on one side, then the other. Or here to here. If we do X's in adjacent spots, middle and then right, it'll move the spot 1 to the right. We did it from here to here. It also would move this one to this, or this to this. If we did here and then here, adjacent to the right, it'll move the spot 1 place to the right, whichever one we're going. Let me expand that a bunch. I'd say if we do X's in adjacent spots, it doesn't have to be middle and then left. It could be right and then middle. That's 1 place adjacent. X over here and then X over here, and it's going to move the spot 1 place. Wherever it is, 1 place. And if it's here, it's going to move it back to here. That gets into stretching your imagination, but it works. There's a heck of a lot of choreography with just that one set of X's. Just remember to use it and cancel it. Very brief, we've talked about if somebody goes across the center and it's not the actives, then it's the inactive, and that puts all, 1, 2 east, 3 east, 4 east. There are ways to get them northeast to switch it to this. I'm not going to get into that today, but there are different ways to switch it to that or to that. It's all possible. We talked about how to get to a grand right and left. We talked about that a 0 line is the same as an element 4 faced in. It's actually the same as an element 2 faced in too. And you can interchange your calling methods there. For what it's worth, I've never found this useful, just interesting. Some people like to keep track of whether the square is in sequence or out of sequence. I could tell you at any instant that we were going through whether the square is in sequence or out. I'm just talking to men. If X's are canceled, the women are also. If X's are not canceled, the women are the opposite of the guys. Turns out if I'm in any one of these squares, south of this line, if my active man is south of the line, the men are in sequence. If my active man is north of the line, the men are out of sequence. Stated even more generally, if my active man is on the same side of this line as the spot, the men are in sequence. Head star through, puts the men out of sequence. Head star through again, still out of sequence. Head star through again, back in sequence. Now, when I was learning the call, some people were talking about, oh, you just keep track of sequence. Some calls always change sequence, right and left through. Some calls sometimes change sequence and sometimes don't, like star through. How do you know? An X is always an X. A sequence changer is not always a sequence changer. But it's interesting, if you're talking to somebody that uses that myth, you can tell them in an instant, right now I know the square is out of sequence because I've been keeping track, the spot is down here somewhere and the active guy is up here somewhere. And it would stand to reason, he better be when he's on his spot that it's in sequence. But that makes sense. What do you guys know about technical zeros? Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I know true zeros will always work. Technical zeros, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. People that know a little more about them know that you're exchanging actives in the process kind of thing. Yeah. Some callers know, I know that's a technical zero, I'm going to stay away from it because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Quick thing that lets you use it. If all X's are canceled, your technical zero will work. If you've got an uncanceled X, your technical zero won't. Another handy thing, whether you're a module caller or whatever.
So if you call an X, cancel it right away, then you don't have to deal with it.
That's the best thing while you're learning. Now, any questions so far? Like, you gotta be kidding.
If you call the X,
Yeah.
as I said initially, I've always called another X right away.
Yep. Because your arm gets tight.
Yeah, so to speak. And I thought, gee, I should train myself to be able to do some other choreography before I do that next X. Would you really recommend that, or do the other X soon?
I found that I was going along with it. That space between the two X's got longer and longer and longer as I got more comfortable with it.
Okay, so just keep plodding.
Yeah. And it turns out that just calling whatever I wanted, as an X, oh, I canceled it. Here's an X, oh, I canceled it. It's not a here's an X, an X, an X. Oh, I've done 7 of them. Let's see, that's an odd number. I sort of keep track, but following somebody else's choreography is tough because you don't know what his game plan is. But when you've got a general plan you're heading out on, you can follow quite a bit. I used to practice back when Handhurst tape was out and I used to listen to singing calls in the car. The choreography was there that I could just practice mentally following those. Those are 99% easily followable. And that helped me going with it.
How does this compare to crayons?
As best I can tell what crayons is. And I listened to 2 talks that didn't tell me anything and read a couple papers. But talking to people, as best I can tell what crayons is it's basically modules where you've learned a whole bunch of different stations.
Formations, take a snapshot
Yeah.
picture and have a module to resolve.
Yeah, but
Isn't this easier?
I think so. I think this,
Because people have asked me, and I've said, I only follow the number 1 man.
I think this is so much easier because you only have to follow one man. You don't have to memorize who everybody is. And then all of a sudden, while everything is constantly changing like a kaleidoscope, pull this one out, and this one out, and this one, and identify them, and they've changed already. I mean, I had that problem with sight calling resolving for a long time. I figured out ways to make that go away.
How can you blend like sight calling with this program? How can you transition from
Well,
one to the other? Or utilize it and,
Well, as a starter, personal history, I was doing just this because it's the only thing I knew. I learned from Jay King. I was fortunate enough to know him personally because he worked in the same Raytheon plant that I did. And he talked me into buying his book. And I spent an hour just shooting the breeze with him once a week. He talked me into buying his book, and I went home and I said it, and I did this, and after I thought, oh wow, this is good, and the next week I'd report, I've gotten this far, and this is really cool, and I understand this. And then I got to a point, and I said, this is cool, and he said, well, that's not exactly what I meant, but if it works for you, you do it. And eventually, I talked to a lot of people back then. They took Jay about this far and then got confused, or went off this way and couldn't get very far. Where I got confused, I pushed it off this way and evolved a system based on Jay's, but that went beyond it in a different way. And I can't remember your question.
how can you transition
Oh,
from
right.
one to the other?
So I was
Or
basically,
use both? or
I was
whatever.
basically doing this. And I couldn't sight call, even though I knew how to resolve, because I was afraid mentally to let go of it. I had such a good grasp of wherever everybody was, I couldn't let go. So I wasn't able to follow spin chain through at the time. So what I would do is call spin chain through, and then I was forced to sight call resolve, because then all of a sudden it made my mental image disappear.
Well, what is spin chain through, an X or an O or a cross X or?
There are some calls that do some weird stuff. Coordinate, for instance, does an X in the middle, even though you're dancing on the outside, and you can use that by canceling it initially or after. And that's only if you're starting on one side, not the other. Some of those things I've got in the book, not all of them. One of the things I learned how to use, one of the special cases, was ping pong circulate. It's a category of technical zero that only works if you have an X before it and cancel it afterwards.
So you had call an X, do a ping pong, circulate, and then cancel it again.
So let's say I do heads past the ocean, ladies trade, recycle, and pass through as an element line. But I want to use the ping pong circulate. I'll do that ladies trade first, then the ping pong circulate, then the recycle and pass through. So I'll do heads past the ocean, ladies trade, ping pong circulate, my technical zero that works because I did an X before. Recycle is my X afterwards. Pass through. Now, it turns out that I've exchanged, because of the technical zero, I've exchanged actives in my number one man. It's not a number 3 element anymore, it's a number 1. But I switched focus to the other. One of the nice things about this, I'll get to what you asked in a second, but one of the nice things about it is you're not, I always used to watch the whole floor, and then when I got to sight calling it, focus on the square in front of me. Damn, you guys don't make a mistake. And who cares about the rest of them? The other 15 squares who made a mistake and are standing there. But I've got my key square to keep it going. I'll wait if they slow down. I lost that overall control of the whole floor. I say you've got to follow formation. I watch what's going on, and that helps me. I say you got to follow the location of any active dancer in that. I'll follow one guy through some call. That helps me. His square makes a mistake, and I knew he should have ended up here. I'll go to that square and follow this guy. He may have made a mistake before, I don't care. His square is going to come out wrong, but all the ones that didn't make mistakes will still come out right. So I'll use the floor to watch. And I've learned as a sight caller now to watch the whole floor too. Because it's, you know, they paid as much as these guys did to get in the door. You know, we want to keep them happy also. So how do I mix them?
Would you not start off with your, you know, if you're learning it, to start off with the mental imagery and then do it as best as you can and then realize if it isn't truly the corner as you call it, the LMLF, then you go, okay, I can sight call this out.
That's
I mean,
another one.
you know, you've got to start building on what you have here and then go, okay, I was told you're not done till you're done. So you can still play around with them as long as you want with whatever you do.
The problem that I personally would have with that is that I wouldn't have memorized who started with whom, so that if they're not the right corners,
But I
the
think
only
as
way
you're
I'd know is
beginning-
because they'd yell, no, no.
Yeah, but from the
Yeah.
beginning, if you write them down as
Yeah.
a sight caller or whatever, you would have to
Yeah.
write them down so you would know, but keep that as your backup and then just
Yeah.
do it this way and then go, okay, did I get it right? No, but then go back to what you have.
But again, the singing call choreography and beginner class choreography are simple enough, so you can build slowly with it.
Let me see if I got this right. So depending on where you cancel your X, that's going to dictate what square you're going to resolve your active man from?
If you cancel the X in the same location that you did it, the spot just stays wherever it is. If you moved it here for a while and do lots of it stays wherever it is. If you cancel the X in a different location, the spot is going to move accordingly. If you don't cancel the X, your square is not going to solve properly.
So if you square through 4 and then call 2 X's, it's going to resolve there.
Right there.
So whatever, so if you call 2 X's on either side of the floor, that's where it's going to resolve.
No, that's why I was trying to get you away from that. If you call it here and then here, it'll resolve over here. But if you call it here and then here.
No, if you square through 2, okay, and call 2 X's there, that's going to resolve there.
It's going to cancel the X's, but your spot is still over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're thinking right, but we didn't get the wording right to communicate.
Yeah, it's still going to resolve in the 3 spot.
Yeah, that spot's going to stay there as
Right.
long as all X's are canceled in the same location you created.
In the same half of the square.
Well, I think
No.
of locations as the left, the middle, and the right.
Okay, okay.
There's a lot of material there.
Yeah,
And as I say, even as a site caller, hopefully it's interesting to you to see that there are some rules that govern all the stuff we know and love, and hopefully beyond that, you find it interesting too.
And I think as you've been doing it up front here, if anybody's trying to learn this, you need to sit down, work your dolls, and trust
Yeah.
what happens. You've built a trust that it works. If somebody doesn't build that trust that it works, they're not going to do it.
Good. I told you, I can't teach it to you in this short of here right now.
Right.
I can show you that it works, I can show you the basics,
But you got to sit down
and I can show you whether you think you want to invest the time in learning. It's not easy to learn because it takes time. It's easy to use once you've learned it. That's the beauty of it. It really is pretty easy to use once you've learned it. And you can choose to learn just canceling X's and never moving the spot, and you still have an awful lot.
Colors always call head square through 4. I mean, that's
I've heard
standard.
that.
That's standard. All the colors square through 4. To deviate slightly from that and still get into the 0 box, I usually like to use the sides right in the through and the head slide through the pass-through.
Yep.
That changes your resolve spot.
Yep.
And it also changes that so that when you do your elemental left and the right and left grand, you really end up, there is no
Yep.
promenade.
Yep. Let me put that in exactly what you said, but in the same terms that we've been using.
Yeah.
I start by saying sides, right, and left through. Somebody crossed the center, it wasn't my active person.
Right?
Therefore, my spot moved from a 3W, 3 west, to a 3
Exactly.
east.
That changes
That's the
your
way I
results.
thought. I don't
Changes
keep
your
track
results,
of,
Bob.
I don't keep track of where anybody else is, just
Right.
know the spots
You
moved
don't
over
need
here.
to.
And now I can dance them wherever I want, but bring the guy to here, and you bring him there quickly with the head slide through, pass through. But
You don't have to do it
Right,
that way,
exactly.
But yeah,
in my book, I call it not inverting the square, but flip-flopping the square. I don't like that term, but Bill Peters talked me into it. He said it's the standard when everybody's using it. I like your...
what, inverting?
Yeah. So if you read the book and you see me saying flip-flopping the square, it's not my turn. It's too big a mouthful.
Well, I think inverting comes at a different level too, where you have, this
Yeah.
inverting line or inverting.
Yeah,
So you don't want to keep mixing up
Right.
the language,
Yeah, that-
basically. You've got to come up with something else.
Anyway, the handout, the first page is just a quick overview of what we've done. Pages 2 and 3 review spot moving, especially 3. I do an X in the middle and an X on the right, and it shows where you're, and there I actually have the square arms instead of the arrows. It should be easier to read. And then 4s, O's, and 5s is X's plus across the center stuff. So it's a review that if you want to go learning a little more, you can.
And then you've got your
If you
book.
want to learn lots more, I printed this, published it 30 years ago, had 1,000 printed. They died about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I finally got this reprinted a little over a year ago. There's 30 more pages. The meat of the choreography is the same. I've just added a lot of BS at the beginning and the end because I felt like talking about stuff. Just gonna make a,
How much do you charge for your book, Don?
29 bucks plus shipping and handling if you can't make your decision up now.
You don't have any with you?
Of course.
I'll take one.
I forgot what shipping, I think this comes up to 37 with shipping and handling unless it's out of the country, and then it's a bunch more. There's a lot of stuff in here. A lot of it we've covered briefly. There's how to define an X and an O. If you come up with a C1 call, you're wondering, this will help you define what it is. Trial and error is another thing. You call it and see if it zeroes out with your dolls, and if not, call ladies chain and see if it zeroes out. And if it zeroes out, then it was an X. It's pretty common sense. But
So if you do a ladies chain, it's an X.
yeah.
If you did 4 ladies chain, then what is it? He said it was a mess. That's what he said.
It's a head ladies chain and a side ladies chain. It's 2 different ones. They cancel each other, but it moves the spot.
Okay,
And-
so it's like a double X.
Yeah.
If you did
it's a
4
head-
ladies chain,
heads
it's a-
and a sides, but they're done in different places, so it moves the spot. It turns out that this is jumping way ahead, but it's there. And a lot of these chapters, I think I give them silly names, and one of them is because it's there. I never use that
You
particular
don't have
aspect.
to, you don't have to go into that.
But it turns out that if I have a square set, my heads are active, but I do an X with the sides, like side ladies chain, I've done an X in a phantom location, which is either here or here. And same rules, if I do one here and here, it moves the spot one direction here. If I did one in the middle and then a phantom X, either here or here, it moves it 2 spots, or basically takes it. It all makes, well, one of the things that I end up doing and having fun with, a lot of people do 6 couple dancing. I'm not talking about hexagons, the new stuff, but 2 pair of head couples and and one pair of sides. I set it up, and there's a chapter on the book about it or two. I set it up as, I do 6-couple dancing as, I set them up in 1P, 2P, 3P. 2 lines of 6 facing each other. And you could get to that from the other, but I tell them, you know, let's say I've got 3 squares left at the end of the night. I'll have everybody have the sides lead right and circle to a line. Center square split, 2 go with them, 2 go with them. Or if I have a square and a half, I'll have sides lead to a line and the other 2 come up and join them. And anything I call works out for either the 6-couple lines or the 4-couple lines. It's the same choreography. But it turns out that all this stuff works. It's effectively, you know, a 0 line. I'm starting with this, following this guy, and his spot is in a trade by here. If I do a spot, an X here, and then here, I move it to here, I can do an X, you know, it's 6-couple. I can do an X here and here. It's 5 spots away, it moves a spot 5 places. But all the rules are exactly the same. So you can have fun with it. It's something that I try and warn callers. Dancers really love it once. It's a gimmick. Repeat it again in 3 months, but you know, let's not do one every night because they get bored pretty quickly. But and if you want, you know, I even do singing calls that way sometimes. I just rotate partners, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Take a middle break. Rotate partners 5th, 6th, and 7th. You know, there's all sorts of stuff you can play. Just the basic knowledge. There's another thing that a sight caller can use just to fill in that kind of stuff. Integrating it, again, I use it for singing calls. I use it at the beginning. I use it to help resolve if the lady's not staying where she should when the guy's going. And sometimes I'll just go in and out when I feel like it. Probably mostly I use it for singing calls. You know, and I've done sight calling on singing calls too, with C1 and C2 groups. Just sight, as you know, as I say, I have troubles memorizing corners, but the first sequence, the corner is the same one I've been memorizing for the longest time. And the 4th sequence is the same corner, except instead of swinging her, I'll do an Allen man left, come back to my partner. And the middle 2 sequences, I'll use mental image or memorized sequences, whatever C2 requires.
When you call and you're doing a singing call, do you change your figure every four times?
I do mostly. I don't think it's the right thing, but I think I've had enough experience under my belt so that I can ad-lib, not sure what's coming out. And, you know, I know that my mind has this, there's 64 beats left, there's, you know, and I can feel it's getting less and less. My mind can hear the music and I know I got to get to that spot real quickly. And I think I've got an experience so that I can still make everything sound like it's matching to the music.
Do you think
the
dancers expect that?
I don't know. For years and years, I just, you know, I went to a record store and I said, what have you got that my dancers can do? They only know this, you know. I figured if it was there, it had to be used. And then I got John Thompson, I think, helped me learn how to ad-lib calls. And I got to the point where I figured I had an obligation. If the thing the guy wrote originally was any good, I'd use it. If it wasn't, I'd find one that was good and use it with that from then on. And then I got lazy and didn't memorize it and more experience at ad-libbing. You guys have danced to me relatively recently. Does it sound like the singing call figures fit the music?
I have some singing calls that I don't change the figure at all because it works so well with that song. And then others I change up the figure.
I mean, there's some.
As far as the dancers, it's like anything else. You're going to find some who like it and some who don't.
It's, you know, there's some singing calls that it's against the law to change the figure. Summer sounds.
Summer songs.
They're classics and pretty much. Yeah.
I had a small workshop group once that I was trying to make some kind of a figure fit new music. I wasn't that experienced with calling yet, but working at it. And one of the dancers said, well, you know what the problem is? You're not using the grand square. Because that's the way they learned it, you know?
Yeah.
It depends on the dancers too, I guess. But I have mixed emotions on that. You know, I think it's a good thing to use the original, but I don't. But one of the things I try to do though is use a theme. You know, I'll do 2/3 of the original, or whatever I did, whatever comes out of my mouth the first time, and then I'll do just a slightly different last call or two at the end. You know, slide through, swing your corner instead of star through, pass through, partner, trade, and roll, and swing. You know, so it feels like the same thing's coming, but there's still just a little surprise there.
Well, you can do that with stars. Star
Yeah.
right, square through, star right, star left, and then
Yep.
then do 2 or 3 different endings, or something like that. But anyway,
For me, I think the majority of the time, the callers get bored, not the dancers. They're truly dancing with different people they don't even think about whether it's the same figure or not. It's
You're right.
us.
You're absolutely
And
right.
sometimes we just go overboard on what we do versus having fun with it.
Well, there's a whole nother thing of what's hard and what's easy, and keeping track of how do you judge one from the other. In fact, I've got a talk that's kind of, I think, an interesting way to look at it and help you figure out what's hard and what's easy. And one of the things that I like about using this strictly is the choreography tends to be a little easier because you're working on following it, and because it's easier, the dancers can get through it better, and they can just, you know, if you've got all the other things right for smooth dance, timing, hand availability, body flow, et cetera, it's fun dancing. Matt went contra dancing last night, which doesn't have any challenge for the choreographer, but people have fun because it's wind in your face, it's consistent, it's live music that it took me 3 or 4 or 5 times going that before I could concentrate on the music and start enjoying it. It didn't hit me right away. It's different people interaction. It doesn't happen. I remember walking away from a contra dance and, oh, box to that. What did that mean? You know, that was the big topic of the conversation. It was just a, so yeah, you don't have to have complicated. Let's have a hand for my friends here. They help a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks for having me here.
You have spoken about sight calling, modular calling, mental imaging. And I have stumbled from the beginning over sight calling. What would you regard as sight calling?
To me, sight calling is a 3-part thing. One is memorizing who started with whom. 2 is dancing smooth, good choreography without worrying about who goes where. And 3 is resolving, bringing everybody back to whom they started with in sequence. Most people think of sight calling as the last part. Number 2 part should be the most important.
Well, proper body flow is important. What you're calling is not necessarily important during the dance. I call it sight resolution.
Well, the sight resolution is the 3rd part, I think
Right.
of. And that's the one that has everybody hung up.
Now, I do like modules, and I do like this system. Timing and body flow are important.
Definitely. Definitely. At least I feel they are.
Absolutely.
Some callers sacrifice timing for difficulty.
Mhm.
You know, if you stop here and regroup,
Yeah.
and then you go over to this strange place and stop and
And that
regroup.
is very tiresome for the dancer.
One of the best compliments I had at a dance many years ago, I think it was in New Hampshire, this old guy comes up to me and he said, "Man, do you call fast?" Which is the perception people get on close timing, even though I know my tempo is pretty slow. And I was about to, you know, the hairs raised on the back of my neck, and I was about to try to explain the difference between tempo. He said, "But you know what? I'm an old guy, and I usually sit down every other tip, and I've been dancing all night tonight, and I feel great."
Yep.
And that was,
There you are.
felt good. Yep.
I've had people say, you know, slow the music down. That's different.
I typically run a much lower tempo than most people, but keeping close timing. One of the times I found out about what good timing was, getting onto another subject, but I brought a contra dance friend of mine in to watch a square dance, and we talked about some of the additional calls, and I wanted to find a good example of a dance that she could see this, so we found one on the North Shore Mass that had two callers at different levels, and both were pretty good callers. And we went in and watched one. She was enjoying that and watching. She said, I keep hearing them call Ferris wheel, but I can't quite figure out what it was. And we went to the other one. She said, oh, that's what a Ferris wheel is. That caller was stop and go. She could see the position before and the position afterwards. And I've done some caller seminars where some guy was horribly stop and go calling, and people always used to tell him about it. He never believed it. One guy was videoing, and I said, can I borrow your video? Because I didn't have a camera at the time. We take a look at it, and the guy said, is that what my dancers look like? Wow. Why didn't anybody ever tell you? And the other guy's trying to tell you, you know. You stop and look and see the dance, wait, dance, wait. But while you're calling, there's so much going on at once. Which foot do I tap, you know? It's a fun sport.
Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And,
Thanks for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
You get one of your books done.
we have a-
Glad to.